Rabbi, since anyway the situation right now in Eretz Yisrael is not the greatest, maybe it should be better. So I decided I'll talk about a morbid issue about brain death. It's a hotly contested issue, and we'll get involved a little bit, right? We'll see how the title of the shir, the Heartless chicken and the Headless sheep, is directly related to the brain death. And Igor is alive is what? Frankenstein, right?
Wait, Rabbi, is it because of Biden? Brain death shir?
Well, we should have put that on camera. Maybe should be on camera. But actually, Biden spoke excellently the first time, right after.
The first time ever, I know, right?
I couldn't believe it how well he spoke.
It's a Jewish land. It's a Jewish land. It's a
anyway,
miracles.
be it as it may.
They're miracles.
So, right, Igor, it's alive. Where did that come from? Frankenstein. I suggest everyone should read Frankenstein. Read the book, not to watch the movie. Read the book.
You didn't do either.
I read the book.
You said you didn't read it.
I read it. Of course, I read it. It's a beautiful Mussar book. It's really a Mussar book about how the monster deals with his Yetzer Har and Yetzer Tov. And actually, Igor is alive. In the original book, there was no Igor. There was no assistant, right? Frankenstein was actually the scientist. Frankenstein is not the monster. In the book, Frankenstein is the scientist, not the monster. And in the original book, there's no Igor. But later on, through movies and all different things, they added a scientist. And when he makes the Frankenstein, what does he say? Igor, it's alive. Okay? So we'll see what it has to do with Right to China. So, all right. Now, we have to have a little bit of background. We have to have a little bit of medical background. I'm not a doctor, but we have a doctor here, and I'm sure he'll critique me if I make any mistake. In the good old days, my friends, life was easy. You just died. It was very simple. You just died, you know? Either you stop breathing, and then your heart stopped, and then everything goes, or your heart stopped, and then you stop breathing, and then everything goes. It didn't make a difference. It didn't make a difference what went first, or what went second, or what went third, because it all happened within minutes, even less than minutes. So a guy got a heart attack. Well, blood's not flowing anymore. He'll stop breathing. If the guy stopped breathing, our heart's going to stop. So it didn't make. No one sat in the good old days and say, "Why is the guy dead? Is it because he stopped breathing? Why is Halacha-Jewish called dead? Is it because he's not breathing anymore? Is it because his heart's not beating? Is it because the rest of the body turned down?" No one ever talked about that because it makes no difference. Irrelevant, because it all happened basically simultaneously, right? So in the good old days, life was very good. You just died nobly, and no one had to deal with why you're dead. It was clear why you're dead, right? Now, by the way, it is true. Even after you're dead, officially dead, there are parts of the body that still work. In a sense, there are live cells. Nebuch, if it's on the news, I gave a shit about this like a year and a half ago. They tried to do it again. A soldier got killed, and his wife is actually a famous star or something, a writer. She tried to take the semen out of the dead guy's body to impregnate her. It didn't work. It didn't work this time. It didn't work this time. It worked the other time. But I'm just showing you from there, even when you die, officially dead, there are still parts of the cells that make still be alive. But basically, in the good old days, you stop breathing, your heart stopped, you're not moving anything, you're dead, right? Okay. What happens in the 50s, the 60s, whenever it happened, with the advent of ventilators? So we have a new phenomenon. What's this new phenomenon? That 90% of the body is alive. The major 90% is alive, 10% is dead, right? Because what happened? So now we're going to talk about total brain dead. We'll concentrate on total brain dead and not and partial brain dead. So when you have a total brain dead body, when you have a totally brain dead person, that means his whole brain doesn't work, right? What does the brain consist of? It consists of the cortex, right? The cerebral cortex, that's the front part of the brain, right? The front part of the brain makes you speak, think, walk, right? And then there is the bottom part of the brain, which is basically, and there's all different types of names, but I'll give you basically an approximation. There's something called the brain stem, right? And that's on the bottom part of the brain. Now, in actuality, it is possible that only the top part of the brain is dead, right? That's basically something that's a vegetable, it's a vegetative state. That person can't sing, can't speak, can't walk, but he's still breathing on his own. He's still breathing on his own, right? And everything is working on its own. It's just the top part of the brain is not working, right? The lobes, right? The 4 lobes, right? They used to be lobotomy, right? If you want to say someone, and nowadays you want to say someone is stupid, you say he was lobotomized. Because in the good old days, they used to take, for people who had psychological problems, they used to cut out half the brain, and hopefully they would get better, which is obviously not what we do nowadays. But that's where lobotomy comes from. But be it as it may, there's partial brain death, which is the top gray part of the brain, and that is, again, the cerebrum, the cerebral cortex, and there, 99.9% of even secular doctors or medical ethicists will say you're not dead. Why? Because you're doing everything. You're breathing, your heart's beating, everything's happening. You just can't think and speak and walk. So that's called partial brain death. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that anyone is going to say the guy's dead. Right? There is a movement now to say that you're brain dead even in that situation. But as of now, partial brain death, basically only the top part of the brain is gone. No one says you're considered a brain death. Okay. What happens if you have total brain death? So total brain death is also the brain stem is dead. The bottom part is dead. Now, in the brain stem, there's something called a vagus nerve in the medulla. Basically, the brainstem controls breathing. And if the brainstem is dead, you are not breathing. Okay? Now, but what is amazing, the heart and most of the rest of the body could work for a couple of days, even a couple of weeks, depending on how you do it, could work without a brain. Meaning you could basically not have a brain, and your heart's going to work, your kidneys are going to work, your liver's going to work, your nutrition's going to work, you're going to defecate. You don't need a brain. Right? Okay. So now. So in the good old days, it wasn't relevant. This whole thing wasn't relevant. Because if you stop breathing, everything goes a minute later. If you stop breathing, there's no oxygen, so everything will die. That's in the good old days. But in our days, we have the ability called ventilation, which basically means you could keep someone breathing. So it's true. He's totally brain dead. He's not doing 10% of a major thing to breathe. He can't do it. He's being ventilated. But the other 90%, he's doing all on his own. He's totally doing it all on his own. All you're doing is putting in air into it, right? Let me bring this to, let me explain this a little bit more. When you breathe, there's actually 2 things that happen. You bring in the air, and you let out the air, right? You inhale and exhale. But besides that, there's an exchange of gases, right? What are you doing over there? Why are you breathing in, right? Because the body needs oxygen, and the body, for some other, produces carbon dioxide. So when you breathe in air, it goes into the lung, I think it's the alveoli, I forgot the name of the alveoli maybe, the lung takes the oxygen, sticks it into the blood, takes the waste, which is CO2, which plants actually like, take it out, and exhale. So a brain dead person actually could do part 2. A brain dead person, the only thing he can't do is part 1. He just can't bring in air and bring out air. But if you somehow or other manually get air into him, everything else will work. The lungs will take out the oxygen. It's called exchange of gases. It will put the oxygen in the blood. It will take out the carbon dioxide. So it's not even 100% correct to say that a brain dead person, we're talking about totally brain dead, it's not 100% correct to say that he doesn't breathe. It's not 1,000% right to say that. He doesn't do part of the breathing, okay? So now, let's get to his perspective. Let's say you're going to go to the morgue. A guy's been dead for half an hour. You put him out of the freezer, right? And you put him in a ventilator. What is going to happen? Nothing is going to happen. Nothing. It's like putting air in an airbag. Nothing will happen. His heart won't work. Everything died already. So it doesn't make a difference. He's not producing carbon dioxide. He doesn't need oxygen. So if you take a real dead guy, a guy from the morgue, or like a dead guy in the good old days, and you put a ventilator in it, nothing happens. The the anomaly over here, or the novelty over here is, even though he's not doing one major function, he is not breathing, again, he's doing the exchange of gases, but everything else he does on his own. Everything else he does on his own. The heart is beating on its own, because amazingly enough, the heart is controlled by the spine. Almost everything else is controlled by the spine. Now, let me explain to you what that means. A brain dead person will die eventually. I don't mean in 80 years from now. Usually he will die in a couple of days, because it is true that the heart works on its own, and the kidneys and the digestion, but the brain does regulate it. There is regulation by the brain. So it is true for a while the heart will work. It could be a couple weeks. They'll store you guys for months, but usually it's a couple days. But at the end of the day, because there is no brain and there's not this regulation, at the end of the day something's going to go wrong. Unless you very vigorously keep on putting stuff into him to keep him going, at the end of the day he will die. Because the brain does control many parts of the body, but regulates. But they actually, you don't have a brain. You don't have a brain. Cut off your brain. Gone. You have no head. The body officially could work, heart, everything, as long as you got air, you had the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, right? Okay. So in the good old days, again, it never happened. It just never happened. It just, when you didn't breathe, everything else fell apart. And nowadays we have this new advent. Oh. Okay. So, what is halacha? What is halacha? What is halacha of this guy? The guy is 90% doing everything on his own. But just one of the major things, just breathing in, he's not doing on his own. Is he dead or not? That's the question. You'll say to me, who cares? Well, I'll tell you why we care. The main reason, there are a bunch of reasons why we care. But the main reason why we care is because, for two major reasons. You have Mr. Harry. Everyone here is Jewish. If it's Goyim, maybe it's a different story. Right now, everyone's Jewish. Harry's Jewish, George Jewish, everyone's Jewish. Harry is brain dead, totally brain dead. He's on a ventilator, right? They got him in time, right? Obviously, you have to do it in time. You can't put him on a ventilator. You got to get him on the ventilator right away. What usually happens is that the guy turns brain dead after he's already on the ventilator. That's the way it usually happens. It doesn't have to be that way. If you're very, very quick, and you do CPR and you get air with him, it could be you'll get a guy who's already brain dead and put him on a ventilator quick enough to keep things going. Let me here's the way. So you have Harry, brain dead, totally brain dead. What's his future looking like? Very bleak. Harry has absolutely no future. Zero. That's it. He's got a couple days to live. But he has a perfect heart. You have a George. George is a healthy, robust, vigorous young man, but he has a bad heart. If we could get Harry's heart into George's heart, it will be a minimal loss to Harry, very minimal, because he's going to die anyway in a couple days, and George will live a nice, long life. So that's the question. That's basically heart transplant. It happens to be for liver, for other organs, it's easier. Let me explain. The story's like this. If a guy is totally dead, which means he stopped breathing and the heart already stopped for 30 seconds or whatever it is, it's very hard. It's not impossible, it's almost impossible to get it in time into George's chest. So if you wait for Harry to be totally dead, meaning you take him off the ventilator, he stops breathing, his heart starts beating, you have to wait 30 seconds, whatever it may be, and then you start that, it's too late. It won't work. 99% it won't work. Recently they found the very expensive way that maybe they could work it out. But in principle, it doesn't work. For the kidneys and the liver, it's easier even if the guy's totally dead. Even if the guy's totally dead, there is a possibility to put it into someone else's body. But for the heart, it's extremely difficult. So now, it's very important for us to know, is Harry dead or not? If Harry is dead, so of course we're going to take the heart and put it in George. You see the situation? Harry's on the bed, Nebuch, he has a ventilator in him. His heart's beating. Everything's working in his body. Just his air is being put in and out, inhaling and exhaling. If we say he's dead at that point, look, we cut open George, Harry, put the heart in George. You'll say, well, nivel mace. It makes us asur b'hana. This can't take dead people and turn them into a soccer ball. You can't. Dead people you have to bury. Maybe you're stealing from dead people. What does that mean? You just gonna take the heart, even if Harry's dead. Mace is asur b'hana. There's nivel mace. You're not allowed to desecrate the dead person. You're not allowed to do anything that mutilates him. Oh, the answer is you're right. It's asur b'hana, and you can't mutilate a dead person. You got to bury a dead person. But there's pikuach nefesh. This is a question of George living or not. So it don't make no difference how many Averis you're doing by taking taking the heart out of Harry. It don't make no difference. You can do 30 Averis, 1,000 Averis, but you're saving George, right? Right. There's one exception to the rule. We all know there are 3 cardinal sins that pikuach nefesh does not take precedence over. One of them is is the killing. So basically, here's the situation. If we say Harry is technically, halachically alive, you can't kill him. Take out the heart to save George. You say, what do you mean? George is going to live for 100 years. Harry's dead in 3 days. The halacha is, even 1 second, even 1 nanosecond, you can't kill someone. You're over on Ritzicha. If you kill someone, even if you take away 10 seconds of the guy's life, you're over Ritzicha. So you cannot take the heart out of Harry, which will kill him, obviously. That will obviously kill him. To put it in George. So this is a major, major issue. Obviously, we would like, at least emotionally, we would like brain death to be called dead. That's what we would like, emotionally. Because, hey, Harry's finished anyway. George can live. So we would like it to be called dead. But the problem is it halachically called dead or not? Okay? So now, what would be the other nafkaminas? So there are many nafkaminas. So here you got Harry. He's brain dead. Again, totally brain dead. Not partially brain dead. Not what we call a vegetable, vegetation state. Not that. Totally brain dead. The whole brain's gone. Top, bottom, everything. So he's not breathing. Okay. It costs a lot of money to keep Harry on these respirators, and he has a hospital bed. If he's dead, you just take him off the respirator. If he's alive, it's very, very complicated how you take him off the respirator. It's not simple at all. Maybe one day we'll give a share about that. You have a terminally ill person, a guy now has cancer. Never cancer, he's not brain dead, but he wants to go. He's had it. And he's on a respirator. Could you take him off the respirator or not? It's not simple. It's not simple at all. But if Harry's dead, no problem. Take him off. He's dead, right? He's dead. On the contrary, you got to take him off because you got to bury him, and you got to get him to bury him right away. What does that mean? You got to take him out off the respirator, right? Obviously, other nafkaminas will be. It's all the same thing. Yard site, what they would keep yard site. Avelis, when they said avelis, could a kohen is a relative? Could he visit a brain dead person or not? It's all the same nafkamina. But again, the major nafkamina, which even the secular world's not going to talk about kohanim and yard sites and avelis, right? They are talking about organ transplant. That's all they care about. Organ transplant. That's what they want. That's what they want to talk about. Okay, so what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Is he dead or not dead? You got the story? 10% of him doesn't work, a major part. Can't just inhale and exhale, but everything else is working. But one major part is not working. So, what do you guys think?
Not dead.
What?
Not dead.
Okay. So, I'll be honest. I don't care what you guys think. I don't care what you guys think.
Why'd you ask us?
All right. So the bottom line is.
He doesn't care.
The bottom line is the Rabbanut Paskin, he's dead. And now when we say Rabbanut, we mean Shlomo Amar. We're talking about big major league Talmidei Chacham. We're not talking about people in the Yeshiva world are Rabbanut. No, we're talking about big people. We're talking about Rabbi Yosef. We're talking about major league hitters.
It's your son.
And they, it's your turn, right?
Yeah.
My wife, yeah. So they actually paskin that you brain death is death. It's a big kiddush. It's an amazing kiddush. That brain death called dead. The point is, what we're going to talk about more next week is, we don't really care about the brain being dead. That's not what we care about. That's not the issue. The issue is that he's not breathing. That's not the issue that he's brain dead. Because like I said, if you're not walking and talking, you're also partially brain dead. It doesn't just the brain. It just happens to be, because the brain is dead, you are not breathing. Now, breathing is clearly a major part of life. Talking, not such a major part of life.
What?
Walking,
Dam nefesh adam.
well,
Dam is nefesh adam. I said.
okay, but yeah, that's true. But what is the definition of someone alive? If someone can't breathe, it's being done mechanically, even though everything else is working. And remember, you have to remember, if you did it mechanically, everything else will fall apart too. You have to remember that. So Rabbi Yosef and many others, big Tamicham, said you could do it, and that's the law. They do actually organ transplants in Israel. Of course, you'll find out that most Charedim, Rabbi Yashiv, Rabbi Orbach, Rabbi Sternbach, almost everyone says it's Asr, that he is considered alive. Moshe Feinstein is going to be a big brouhaha. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. It's very important to know where Moshe Feinstein holds, and no one knows what he holds. Big fights what he holds. For some reason or other, Moshe Feinstein is like a major, he is a major league player, but every camp wants to get him on his side. He's like a queen. Like, you want to get him on your side. So actually, each camp holds that he's on his side, because there are many different letters and it's hard to read it. But be as it may, Reb Moshe Feinstein is not clear. But since where the Charedim are going to go after Rabbi Orbach and Rabbi Yashiv, so the Israeli government allows you to tell the hospital, well, I don't want to go according to the Rabbanut. I don't want to act according to the Rabbanut that's brain dead, called Halacha-Jewish dead. I want to act like more the Charedim. I don't mean that, whatever, that's not a question of Charedim, not. The Rabbi Yosef is Charedim too. I just want to be more machmer. I want to be more stringent. And that's allowed. That is allowed in the Israeli hospitals. They ask you right away, do you want to go like this, you want to go like that? Okay, now, so now, it's too late. I have to go to a wedding. A good friend of mine who's American, his wife is American, and no one's coming to the wedding except for Biden because no one can fly. I really have to go. But so next week, we're going to bring down 3 Gemaras that actually talk about this in a way. It alludes to this. You're just like, what? In the good old days, there was no ventilators and there was no concept brain dead because, like I said, in the good old days, the second you were brain dead, you were all dead. It all went, right? There wasn't this concept. It's only a new concept. But still, we could look at 3 different Gemaras and debate what those Gemaras mean, and that's what they do. Some rabbis read it this way, some rabbis read it that way, and we'll do that hopefully next week. But what I do want to do today is, it's interesting enough, there's a very famous doctor, 2 doctors, Rabbi Steinberg, still alive, I don't know, must be 90, he's still totally with it, and he was a Talmud Muvik of Orbach, but at the end of the day, I don't know how exactly this is, but he was the main proponent that brain death should be considered dead. I mean, he argued on his Rebbe. That's what they were best friends. I mean, he felt that in this case we should paskin that brain death is dead, and he's a big proponent of that. Famous guy, Rabbi Steinberg. Okay. Anyway, and Rabbi Orbach said no. Rabbi Orbach disagreed. We'll talk about why exactly, maybe when we get into the more particulars. Rabbi Orbach disagreed. So Rabbi Orbach said, you know what? Forget about the question, is it the heart that's the main thing, is the breathing the main thing, is it not moving the main thing? That's really what the question is going to be. I have a Gemara, so a backwards way I can figure out the answer to this question. So a backwards way, so more of an empirical way, not about the lumdus. Why? Because we have to know 2 points. The Gemara says in Erechin, a pregnant woman who dies, the baby will also die first. The baby dies first. When a woman is sick and she dies, the baby dies first. That's the Gemara. Open Gemara. Gemara's talking about the Yerusha. Could you have a Yerusha? No, you can't have a Yerusha because a baby has to be 1 day. It can't be a Yerusha by a fetus. Whatever the Gemara's talking about there. The bottom line is, the Gemara makes a very clear statement. A pregnant woman who's dead, who died, her baby's dead. Great. Wonderful. And the fact on the ground is you could have a total brain dead lady and she will give birth to the baby. So there have been many cases like this, not 1 and not 2. There have been many cases where there's a lady who's totally brain dead for a couple days even, and the baby was born. So if you put the Gemara says if the lady dies first, it has to be that the baby dies. And we know that by brain death, total brain death, women could give birth after the totally brain death. Put 2 and 2 together, it must be she's alive. It must be a total brain deaf person is alive. It must be. That was Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's proof. Again, it's not talking about the issue at hand. It's just through putting this Gemara and that Gemara together, he can figure it out. It must be that a brain dead person is alive because he's giving birth. Fine. But Shlomo Zalman, which I was zeiche to see right before he died, his visage was amazing. Anyway, he said, wait. He called up Rabbi Steinberg, and he called up this Dr. Halpern. There's another Halpern. Dr. Halpern said, we're going to do, let's see if this Gemara is right. Let's see if his proof is right. Right? Again, so Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said, I have a proof in the Gemara, brain dead is not dead. What did they do? They took a sheep. They went into a laboratory. You see Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is sitting there with his white coat, and the doctor's white coat, maybe you see like little blue lights through some glow, whatever, bulbs. And the first thing they did, they took a sheep. Now, I hope the animal rights people are not listening to this. They drugged the sheep so it shouldn't feel pain, and they intubated the sheep. Okay? So basically the sheep stopped breathing on its own. It was breathing through the ventilator. Right? And they checked the vital signs. Everything's good. The heart's good. Everything's good. Everything's working. Great. Now, the sheep was pregnant. Now you have to have one more piece of information. The Gemara, the Mishnah in Heartless, which I'm sure you've all learned many times, right? The Mishnah in Heartless says, Mishnah in Heartless says something very emphatic. We'll talk about more next week. Mishnah in Heartless says like this. If, and you'll see right away why it'll be very pertinent for next week. If you cut off a behemoth's head, even though that behemoth is dancing the tango, right? So you got the sheep, you totally cut off his head, totally, very important. You totally cut off his head, even though we all know the concept that after you cut off a head, the nerves are still around. For some reason or other, it could dance for a couple of minutes or seconds. Tamei, it's tamei right away. Meaning, it's dead. Once you cut off the head entirely, it's dead. I don't care if the sheep is playing, I don't care if the behemoth is playing chess. I don't care what he's doing. I don't care. He's dead. And therefore he's tamei nevela, right? What tamei? We know a dead animal that doesn't have shechita is called a nevela, right? Right? Okay, I can't go through this. Maybe next week we'll train for nevela, what the difference are. I'll be able to make. So here you go. Cut the animal's head, it's still running around, you shake it, Shalom Aleichem, you say Shalom Aleichem back, you're tamei. Because he's dead. Right? Okay. The Gemara says we see this, because if you cut off a tail of a lizard, the lizard's tail is definitely not alive, it's been cut off, and it still flaps around. So now, whatever you hold, whether you hold brain death, totally brain death is alive, whether you hold totally brain death is dead. Everyone agrees if you cut off someone's head, you're dead. No one argues on that. So here's the story. So you see Shlomo Zalman Auerbach with his two big Talmidei Chacham, the big doctors, big Talmidei Chacham, and they're there in the lab and they have the sheep. It's dark and thundering outside, right? And they have the intubated pregnant sheep. And they cut off his head. Shoot! Slice the head off of the sheep. The sheep is headless. Everyone agrees that it's dead. A head, right? And they look at the machines. It says the heart's still working. It says everything's still working. Because even though it has no head, the air is coming into the body. And I explained to you, if you have the spine, everything can still work for a couple, right? So you got the headless sheep, which is everyone's holds is dead. And they waited they waited for a while, for whatever reason, and they gave birth to a healthy sheep, a little baby lamb, right? So we can say Mary had a little lamb. The sheep had Dolly, what I call Dolly, right? Dolly. So the sheep had, and it was a mazel tov, and everyone said, Igor, it's alive! They can't believe it's alive, amazing. Right. So, what was proven by this? What was proven by this? It's a little complicated, put it all together. It proved, I'm going to say one way, but that this Gemara is wrong. I know I'm going to change it a little bit, but just to make it put it into perspective. It proves that this Gemara in Erechin seemingly is wrong. Because the Gemara, that's the way. The Gemara says, if you're dead, you can't have a baby. The sheep was definitely dead, according to every Shita, and it had a baby a couple of hours later. So you see, the Gemara is wrong.
No, 'cause it wasn't
So
dead.
Rav Shlomo, right. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was extremely depressed because he would like that it would have been, they couldn't have a baby. Because his whole proof was that this Gemara is right. If this Gemara is right, he has proved his point. Because since a pregnant woman who is brain dead, totally brain dead, could have a child, based on this Gemara, you see that she's alive. But now that he proved that the Gemara is wrong, so the Gemara is wrong. So you can't prove anything from the wrong Gemara, right? Now, when I say the Gemara is wrong, I don't mean the Gemara is wrong. Or Shlomo Zalman Auerbach doesn't say the Gemara is wrong. Gemara says, in our days, it must be that since you ventilate it, you cause it to be an incubator, you cause a dead body to be an incubator, and therefore it's true the Gemara is not right in our days. It's not the Gemara is wrong. The Gemara is right. In the good old days, you cut off the sheep's head, dead in a second. The child is dead. Dead, the child's dead right away. In our days, we can make an artificial incubator. The sheep's dead. You cut off its head. But in our days, the baby doesn't die right away because you made an artificial incubator. So be it as it may, but the point is, so now his proof is gone. Bottom line is his proof is gone. Because we're proving that what was whole proof? That a lady that's brain dead could have a child. That must prove that she's alive. Well, by the laboratory, the sheep story, we prove that you could be dead and still have a baby. So his proof went away. Okay? So now, what happened was, let's send this off. What happened was that everyone started advertising that, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman changed his mind, and he said you could do organ transplants, and it's all good and it's all okay, because look, he failed in his in the laboratory test. He came out to be a failure. That was the shmoo in the street. So he wrote a very, very vehement letter, and he said, I did not change my mind. I did not change my mind. I hold you cannot do organ transplant. All the laboratory tests proved was that his proof is not a proof. It didn't prove the other way. It doesn't prove, it just proved one way. It just took away the proof. It just took away, or Shlomo Zalman Auerbach thought he had an empirical proof that a total dead, a brain dead person, total brain dead is alive. He doesn't have the proof anymore. He doesn't have the proof anymore. But it could still be that he's alive, right? So he wrote a very, very, very scathing letter. He says hearsay. He said he did not change his mind whatsoever, and he still holds that way. Fine. So Bli Neder, like I said, I got to go run to this wedding. Bli Neder, we will next week go more of the lumdish aspects of it. Why would you say he is dead? Why would you say it is not dead? Okay? Okay.